here live with the first of hopefully many NFL draft breakdowns here on the Bottom Line View. A little bit later than a lot of other people on YouTube. Just got finished with school, was able to dive deep into the draft over these past week or so, especially on this quarterback position. And the quarterback position is the position that every single year I get excited for, no matter who's in the draft, because it's the position that I feel like, of course, gets the most attention. And these are the players, whether you want to believe it or not, that have the greatest impact on wins and losses in the NFL. And therefore, they matter the most. And if I'm going to be covering the NFL, I need to know what these quarterbacks, their play style, how I think they will perform in the NFL, and how I think they will impact your team out there if you're picking high in this draft, if you're picking one later. And I've specifically spent a lot of time on about the top 7-ish, the consensus top 7 to 10 quarterbacks in this draft, and narrowed it down to the 5 that I feel are the best in this class. You will see a lot of familiar names that a lot of other people have in this top 5, but I do feel like it's maybe in a little bit of a slightly different order than a lot of the other people have. And I do feel like over the past couple of years, I've been pretty accurate on my quarterback selections. Again, guys, I'm not a pro NFL scout. I'm not Mike Mayock or one of these guys on ESPN that have basically spent their whole career studying tape. But even those guys are wrong a lot of the time. I'm just giving you my opinion, what I see from their college play, and what I think will transfer from their college play onto the NFL field in an NFL system in the NFL. And I do feel like I have a good grasp on that. So these are my top 5 NFL draft quarterbacks for the 2020 NFL draft, my top 5 quarterback prospects. Before I do dive in deep, and I wanted to go live here because I wanted to get your questions, because I think it's important to get your feedback as I am discussing and analyzing these players and giving you my thoughts on these players, because I feel like you guys, if you've been looking at the film or studying these players or even watched these players throughout the course of their college career, you may know something that I might not know, or you might have a little bit of a different take than I have. So you could give me your response and we can have a little bit of a shared argument here or an opinion. And I can tell you why I have this opinion over maybe somebody else, another analyst out there on YouTube or in the media. So that's why I wanted to go live, so I can actually address the questions and address the beef that some people may have with the order of my top 5 list and with my arguments for why I have certain players in certain positions. So before I do dive into my top 5, make sure, as always, guys, that you do Gronk Spike the like button, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more NFL draft coverage. I will be going live this year for the NFL draft. I will also hopefully be covering as many positions as possible before then, hopefully all of them. And as well, post-draft, I'll be giving draft grades, draft coverage, my in-depth thoughts on every team and how they came out and what I thought they did in the draft, how well I thought they did in the draft. So make sure you do subscribe for all of that and more. And of course, comment your opinion. Let me know what you think of my top 5, my order, my thoughts on these players. If you have a different opinion, let me know in the comment section below. That is always very important. I want to hear your opinion. I will always respond to your opinion as well. Unless you give me like a 2-story, 2-paragraph long comment. It might take me a couple days just to read it, but I'll get to it eventually. So make sure you do leave those comments in the comment section below. So guys, before I get to my top 5, I wanted to give you an honorable mention. So my number 6 quarterback, somebody that I feel like very close to the top 5, and a lot of other people actually have in the top 5, but I felt like, you know what? He's just a little bit further away, or maybe I just liked other players more. Just period, end of story. So number 6 is Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason is a guy that I think a lot of people are starting to kind of creep into their top 5 and have in their top 5. And I really like him because of his arm strength. I think he has NFL arm strength. I think he has an NFL prototype, sort of what you want in an NFL pocket passer. And I think that's kind of what he is in the NFL. He's not super athletic, but he's a giant on the field. I mean, the guy looks huge amongst college players or NFL players, it's not going to matter. The guy is a big dude. And therefore, why that's important is because he'll be able to stand in that pocket, take hits, and still deliver a powerful football amongst a lot of duress and blitzes and rushers and people at his feet trying to get after him. He's tough. He's big. He's tough to take down. And he's a strong-arm quarterback. He's fairly accurate. I feel like when you compare him to a guy like who's similar to him, I guess, in this draft class would be Herbert. I feel like he's just a little bit less refined as a passer in terms of his actual, accuracy, less consistent, all of those sort of things. But I do feel like he could be one of the sleepers of this draft and one of the prospects of quarterbacks that not a lot of people are talking about enough. And I actually think if he goes to the right team, he could be pretty good, and you could see him starting some games down the road. But yeah, he definitely has upside. His arm stands out when you watch film from him, and I definitely think that alone, and just the fact that he puts balls on the money sometimes, he gets real hot in some of these games he played, and I feel like he could be at the next level a fairly good player. I'm not going to put him in my top 5, just because I think there's some players that do some other things a lot better, and I do feel like some of these things that these top 5 guys do they're very special. And from Eason, I didn't really see anything that was special, and I feel like in the top 5 of a draft class, you need to do certain things at the NFL level that I feel like are going to be in the elite category, even in the NFL. So let's start off at number 5, which actually might be a predictable number 5 for some people out there. But my number 5 is Jalen Hurts. And this might be a little surprising, I guess, to some people. But man, I really, really, really like Jalen Hurts. And I didn't think I was going to really, really like Jalen Hurts coming into this process, because I really had this stigma on him in terms of his Alabama days. Of what I've really seen from him for the majority of his career was a player that was one-dimensional, mostly a runner, not a two-dimensional quarterback, not a guy that can pass the football very well. And actually, after watching him at Oklahoma, he took giant steps forward as a passer. He took giant steps forward as an accurate quarterback. And actually, I feel like in the NFL, he could be one of the players in this class that I actually think could be a sleeper. And I know that's crazy to say, because he's probably one of the bigger named quarterbacks in this class because of what he's done in his college career. But I feel like the stigma, like I said, that has followed him throughout his career is going to cause him to not be a very high pick. I think he's going to probably be late second, maybe probably third or fourth round, and a guy that teams and coaches are going to look at and say, hey, maybe we can use him first, second year as like a situational playmaker, because he certainly has a lot of good things about him in that regard in terms of an athlete. But maybe he's not a starting quarterback for us until maybe year 3, year 4, and then we can thrust him in there. Who knows? But the way I look at him is, just off the top before getting into his game, I feel like he's a guy that actually could be a pretty successful NFL quarterback and probably win some games, which he did at the college level. So my comparison is kind of like a mix of Alex Smith, Tim Tebow. Like, he's a better Tim Tebow in terms of a passer, but they have similar running styles. And he's also like kind of like Alex Smith in terms of he's accurate short passer, not the strongest arm in the world, but also athletic enough to move around and make some plays. He was a very tough comparison because there's no player really like him in the NFL right now. He is 6'2", 225, so he's not really like huge like Cam as a runner, but he's also not small like Russell Wilson. When you look at him, he's pretty fast. I mean, he's 4.59 40-yard dash. That's Cam Newton-esque type of speed. That's faster than Deshaun Watson in the 40 time. He surprised me a lot in terms of not only his running ability, in terms of his actual agility side to side and making people miss. When I saw him for the most part early in his career, is mostly about his power and his ability to just be a slasher in the run game. But I saw at Oklahoma this past season a lot more ability to make people miss in the open field, which I think is going to be promising for him at the next level. When you do compare him to a guy like he's being compared a lot to Tim Tebow because a lot of people think he can't really pass the ball, which he can pass the ball a lot better than Tim Tebow, and I think he'll be a better player than Tim Tebow in the NFL. And hey, Tim Tebow won a playoff game, so that's not too bad. He ran a 4.71 Tim Tebow, so that's like a lot faster than Tim Tebow in the 40-yard dash. When you look at him, also, a lot of the top guys in this class, he is definitely the best runner of this class. It's by a mile. There's no doubt about it. And I think with Lamar Jackson just winning MVP, he is the type of quarterback that I feel a lot of teams will be intrigued by just because of that fact alone. He also showed on tape not just that he could run versus some subpar defenses, but he could run versus good defenses like LSU, who they played in I believe, the college playoff. So he really, even though they lost that game, if you watch that game back, he was running the football versus them. So whenever you're trying to look at a quarterback who is more of a prototype in terms of an athlete, an athletic type, or a guy that can scramble or run, you want to see how they stack up versus these defenses with a lot of NFL prospects. And when I watched him versus a team like LSU, he definitely proved to me that he could be able to run the football effectively in the NFL. When he's passing the football, he's actually really hard to sack. He is very elusive behind the line of scrimmage, ability to move kind of just as an athlete, athletically side to side, move away from pressure, extend a play as a quarterback, and be able to throw the football down the field. He's especially good at this in terms of in the red zone. And that's where I really saw it stand out in terms of him being able to create and just being patient as a passer and not necessarily just going to run the ball, but also behind the line of scrimmage, especially in the red zone. I want to point this out. His ability to find the guy in the end zone and be able to put the ball on the money while on the run or off balance or while being pressured. And that's something that a lot of teams will like because he's athletic enough to do all of those things. When he is in the open field, I kind of talked about his quickness, his elusiveness. One of the moves that he does, and it's just like his go-to move in the open field, is the dead leg kind of juke move where you go one way and then you stop one way and go the other way. That's something Lamar Jackson does a lot, and Hurts is very good at that move as well. And I think that will also transfer to the NFL. He doesn't make a ton of bad plays as a runner or as a passer. He really uses his mobility to escape bad play situations. So if he's being pressured, he'll run away and throw the ball away or potentially gain on the ground, or he'll just throw the ball at the ground. He's very smart, and he was well coached at Alabama and Oklahoma as a quarterback to be able to avoid and then get rid of the ball. So I feel like, again, a team that will be looking to maybe be a run-heavy team with him, but with a defense will also value that in the NFL, the fact that he won't turn the football over a lot. And I think this kind of screams Tyrod Taylor to me. You know, Tyrod Taylor's not the greatest passer in the world. He's very fast, though. He's faster than Hurts is, but he's not nearly as physical or as tough in terms of the amount that Hurts could actually potentially run the ball in the NFL, where he could be a guy that carries the ball 10 times, 12 times in an NFL game and actually be productive doing that and is tough and big enough to do that, but also has the speed to do it, while Tyrod Taylor is more of just a pure scrambler. And that's what the Chargers are looking to do this year. Play defense, have a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, a guy that's mobile, gives defenses issues in that regard. And that's the same way that I think Hurts could hurt a defense in the NFL. Then you look at, he looks to run a lot when he is passing, though. That is something that when I watch Lamar, and the reason I was so high on Lamar coming out of college and I had him as my number one quarterback was the fact that he could run, but he didn't really look to run. So I did say that in the red zone, he does extend plays and pass the ball, which is true. But a lot of times, I don't know if it was Oklahoma's offense specifically, but they had kind of these plays where it was designed for him as a pass, but then also as a run. So if the pass option wasn't there, he was able to run it almost like a quarterback draw-esque type of play, or like an RPO-esque type of play. And I'm not in the quarterback room there, or not on the coaching staff, so I can't really tell you, but that's kind of what I saw. He does look to run a lot, especially versus man coverage if he doesn't see anyone immediately open, which might be a little bit of a flaw in his game going to the NFL level if good defensive coordinators notice that and are able to take advantage of that and kind of get him for losses or trap him into running the football early. So I think he does need a little bit less reliance on the running game and a little bit more in terms of just passing the ball. Then we get to more of his passing. He's accurate, short. I already brought that up, but he actually surprised me at how accurate he is as a short passer. He has really good touch on a lot of his passes, whether it's over the middle, especially in between the numbers, but also in terms of screen passes and all that sort of stuff as well, swing passes. He's very accurate in that regard and would be really able to, I think, operate a spread offense like he did sort of at Oklahoma and be able to spread the ball around, but also use his mobility to create in that regard as well. I already brought up he's really good in the broken play. He's very good in the broken play because a lot of it is due to the fact that like Mahomes or like Rodgers or like Wilson, a lot of these quarterbacks that are good in broken plays are good because they can throw the ball while off balance, off their back foot, and Hurts kind of showed the ability to do that. Even though he doesn't have elite arm strength, he is pretty accurate while on the move and can make really nice passes in that regard as well. He's very experienced in big situations. He's knows his situational football. He almost really never makes a mistake in terms of situational football. So that's positive. He may struggle. So some of the weaknesses, he may struggle a little bit versus athletic fronts in terms of if you have a fast front and you're also behind that able to play man-to-man coverage. I didn't really see enough of it where he would thread the ball into a tight window versus man-to-man on a consistent basis. That's just because a lot of college defenses can't really play great defense versus a mobile quarterback, but also be able to cover in the back end. It's not really, it's very rare, but it's a lot more common in the NFL. But there, again, in the NFL, not a lot of teams that can play superb man-to-man coverage, but also be able to have the athletes to be able to contain a guy like Hurts. And that's why we're seeing these type of quarterbacks more commonly in the NFL. There's only like a handful in the NFL that are able to do that on a consistent basis, but he would struggle versus those teams for sure. The teams that can take the short passing game away and make him throw the ball over the top, which LSU was able to do a little bit in that game. I think he does need to be better in terms of reading and reacting to blitzes and being able to get the ball out quickly as a passer and not just running the ball. And the last thing I really have to say negatively about him is just like, how long is he going to be able to keep this type of style up? How long is he going to be able to run the ball as much as he does if he's going to do that at the NFL level and also be an effective passer and not get injured? Like, that's my question. It was the same question I had with Lamar, and obviously he's not Lamar in terms of being the athlete that he is because Lamar is a specimen, rare talent. But I do think that Hurts can have some success in the NFL. I liked him a lot. I think he surprised me a lot more than probably any quarterback I saw watching on film, and he does seem to have like a little bit of an it factor as a player. He's known to be a team guy. Everybody loves him at Alabama and at Oklahoma. And I feel like you could build a Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton-esque type of offense with him. He could succeed as a short passer in the NFL. So I like all of those things. And I think he is one of the best quarterbacks in this class, and I don't want people to just say that he is just a running quarterback because I actually don't think that's the case. So at number 5, I have Jalen Hurts, and I will get to the comments real quick now to see what people are saying about that one right off the top to see what people say about my Hurts pick. So in the chat, guys, make sure you do Gronk spike the like button. Kiki says, hi. Busboy says, this is about to be boring. Rob says, don't say that. Percentage chance Chargers draft Herbert. I don't know. pretty high. I would say out of any quarterback, I think it's the highest, like probably like 80%. Busboy says Chase Claypool, Moss is Stephon Gilmore. No. New York Phenom says Jim Burrow ain't even good. Bro, who's Jim? Singh says, hi, Mitch. What's up, Singh? Terry says, Hurts to the Raiders. He says, no, to the Steelers. Somebody says, Herbert stinks. Lucky says, hello. Rob says, Eason is a project. Bus says, it's going to be like everybody else's. 1 Burrow, 2 Tua, 3 Herbert, 4 Love, 5 Hurts. Where do I rank From? I think he's probably like 7 or 8. Adam says, who are the Niners taking in the draft? A corner, wide receiver. I would expect a receiver probably pretty early in the draft. I wouldn't be shocked if they took like an offensive or defensive lineman in the draft. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they took a corner as well. But I really want to see them pick a receiver, just personally. But it's tough because they don't have a lot of needs on their team. I don't know if he's the next Lamar. That's a little high praise. Ron says, bro, what are you doing with that Allen jersey? I thought, Allen was recently drafted. He's a quarterback, so why not have him in this video? Jamarcus Russell was a number 1 pick. Eason isn't going to be a number 1 pick. Dak Prescott 2.0, that's a pretty good comparison. If he turns out to be Dak Prescott, I'll be pretty happy. Jordan Love to the Saints, asked Turtle. Ooh, I actually really like that spot. Will Rodgers be mad if the Packers draft a quarterback? Yeah, probably. All right, so let's get to number 4. This might be a little shocking to people. I've literally gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and forth and back and back and forth with the number 4 in the NFL draft. Like, I literally cannot stop thinking about my rankings from 2 to 4. Because the way I see it is like from 2 to 4, it's pretty even in my opinion, especially 3 and 4. Number 1 to me is clear cut, end of story, which you might be able to guess at. And number 5 is pretty far ahead of number 6. So for me, number 4, which a lot of people are going to get really mad at me right now. Number 4 is Tua. Number 4 is Tua. Call me crazy. Say I'm a goofball, say I'm an idiot, whatever you want to say. This is my opinion. This is what I think. You can leave a dislike. I don't even care, but leave your opinion. Tell me why I'm wrong about Tua. At number 4, I have Tua. All right, so why do I have Tua at number 4 and not at number 2 or number 1 or whatever? Because a lot of people love Tua in this draft class. A lot of people love Tua. I've heard people say that Tua is Drew Brees, which I feel like that is crazy that people have him as Drew Brees, in my opinion. But I do this is not to say I hate Tua. This is not to say I dislike Tua, because I know everybody on the channel is going to comment, you hate Tua, blah, blah, blah. I'm not biased towards Tua. This is just what I saw. This is just my personal opinion. Okay? Tua is number 4. Why is Tua number 4? We'll get into that. So what do I have for him? So first off, Tua, just on the surface, 6'1", 217. His comp to me is a mix of 3 different players that I kind of felt were similar to him. First off, I have Baker Mayfield in terms of his size and his accuracy, and a little bit of his mobility as well. Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of his release. I think he has Tua, that's one of his strengths. He has a really good release, and Jimmy has probably one of the better ones in the league. Sam Darnold in terms of his pocket mobility and his arm strength. So we'll get into that. But those are the three guys that I kind of saw within Tua's game. Because, again, guys, you're not going to be able to clearly comp one player to another player because it's not going to happen. It doesn't exist. One player isn't a clone of another player. Like, I don't think that's ever existed in the history of the NFL. I don't even think sons comp to their dads. So let's go with Tua. All right, so let's just start off. He's a lefty, okay? He's a lefty. This is not a negative. I'm just saying he's a lefty. And no starters in the NFL are left-handed. So this could rather be an amazing thing for an offense, or it could be kind of a bad thing. The only thing I would say about lefties is the offense is basically going to be the opposite. And like all the concepts will be the opposite. And the other thing is the spin on the ball will be different for receivers. So that's just something that receivers need to get used to. I don't think it's a pro or a con. I'm just kind of putting that out there. Although, you know, some coaches may like it a lot because it's different and it will make the defense kind of react differently because he's left-handed. I'm not sure. He is on the shorter scale of NFL quarterbacks. And to me, this is a negative. I think this is undeniable that this is a negative. Although that there are some great quarterbacks that are short. Russell Wilson is one of the best in the league. Drew Brees is 6 feet, and that's considered short in the NFL. Kyler Murray is 5'10", 5'11". I think the main thing here, though, that I'm worried about is the fact that, okay, Tua, like, he's not Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray. And what I mean by that is he is not that mobile. He can't escape pressure like that. He can't move around and create plays the way that Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray can. And those guys are short but can get away with it because they're amazing athletes. They're two of the greatest athletes in the world. They both were drafted in Major League Baseball and the NFL. I mean, that's spectacular. Brees could have been a pro tennis player. I don't think Tua's a pro tennis player, and I don't think he's Drew Brees as a passer, especially in Brees' prime. Tyrod Taylor is also 6'1", but Tyrod Taylor probably runs, a 4.5 flat? So, I mean, he's not Tyrod in terms of speed either. So when I look at all the comps, I mean, he's probably Baker Mayfield, and he actually is in terms of his physical appearance. 6'1", 215, and Tua is 6'1", 217. Very similar in terms of makeup, and you guys kind of know how I feel about Baker, and even coming out I felt about Baker. I think Baker has some strengths, which I think are kind of weird, but they also translate to Tua's game, and what do you know? A lot of people in the NFL draft process loved Baker, but also loved Tua. So I'm just throwing that out there. But that's the number one thing for me is I'm concerned that he's small, but he's not fast or quick enough to escape pressure on a consistent basis. And that, to me, right there, doesn't allow him to be a player that will carry a team. And that's a big thing. Okay, so he can scramble a little bit, but he's not an explosive scrambler or a runner when it comes to seeing a lane and running. He has pretty good vision when it comes to running and finding a lane to run, but when he actually explodes through the hole, he's not very explosive when it comes to scrambling. He's definitely not on that caliber of the guys that I've already brought up. He is kind of like a Baker in that regard, or a guy like who can run a little bit, but not great. You know, I'm trying to think of somebody. Like, he'll be an average NFL runner. Just putting that out there. Okay, so one of the big negatives that I do have for him is that he gets swallowed up by blitzers or rushers that are in his face because he is small. And a lot of small guys play bigger than they are. The guys like Russell Wilson, who I've brought up, or Drew Brees. But Tua kind of plays at his size. He doesn't necessarily seem like he's super tough in the pocket. And I think this is a reason he's gotten injured. I think part of the reason he is a little injury prone to me is because of his size, but also his inability to escape pressure and also his inability to avoid those blitzes when they do come. And he'll take on the contact, and he's simply, especially in the NFL, not big enough to take on consistent contact, hit after hit after hit. It was rare at Alabama that I did see him make a really great throw under pressure, powerful, down the field, beautiful strike. Very rare that I saw that from him at Alabama. I saw him make a lot of accurate throws, which is probably the place that people love him the most and the place that I love him the most. But when it came to, okay, like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Ben Roethlisberger or any of the great quarterbacks ever being able to stand in the pocket and take a hit and throw, even Nick Foles in the Super Bowl versus New England, being able to take a hit and throw a strike, Tua, that's not his strength because he's small and he doesn't have a super strong arm, and he's not great at throwing off platform, which Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson are excellent at. And I didn't really see that part of Tua's game in his tape. Maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't see it. And a big thing for me in terms of the draft, part of the reason he's only at 4 is he's hurt right now. If I'm drafting a team right now, and this is going to come in, I can't draft Tua because he's hurt. I don't know how serious the injury is. And all of these concerns have me wondering if this is going to be an issue long term. And I'm not willing to take a player in the top 5 or the top 10 that I don't know is going to be on my team for the long term. And when I go through this process and when I'm giving you what I think this player is like, I am telling you that I do not believe, although other people believe this, in my personal opinion, I do not believe Tua is an elite quarterback, even if he is healthy. So that being said, even if he is healthy, which he isn't, right? I still don't see him, even at his peak, being a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And that's a big reason I only have him where I have him. Now, what is he great at? He is very accurate. He is very accurate, especially short to intermediate. Now, when it comes to deep passing, I've seen better, definitely, especially even in this class, I've seen better. He's very accurate short, though, and intermediate as well. He's excellent in between the numbers, and he has very good timing. He's a very well-schooled quarterback. He is, in terms of quarterbacks that are ready to play right now, he's probably number 2. If I'm being honest, this is not how I rank my quarterbacks, though. I'm not looking for a quarterback just to play 1 year and 2 years. I'm not looking for my quarterbacks just to be able to start year 1. I want the guy that's going to be the best in year 5, in year 10, in year 15. I'm not looking for the guy that's going to be the best in year 1. And for me, Tua might be the second best in year 1 or year 2 because he's pro-ready in terms of his reads, in terms of he played for Alabama, he had good coaching, he can read defenses quickly. These are not things that I think are always just in the quarterback. A lot of it has to do with offenses, especially nowadays. It might have been the case in the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, where it was a quarterback inherent trait. But today we've learned that Mahomes is a guy that didn't even know how to read a defense until he went to the Chiefs. And then he became one of the best in the NFL at reading a defense. So for me, that is a trait, but it's not necessarily number 1 on my list. He's a really consistent passer. He has very good touch and timing, as I've brought up. He goes through his reads well, and I think the NFL will like that a lot. He doesn't have a very strong arm, which is another negative. I'm not trying to bring up all these negatives, but he doesn't have a very strong arm. And I think that's his biggest weakness in the NFL, even more so than the height, the injuries, all of that sort of stuff, being smaller. I think his arm, if he had a great arm like Kyler or Wilson, it wouldn't be an issue. Arm, for me, separates a good quarterback from a great quarterback. You can be a pretty decent NFL quarterback without a good arm, like Alex Smith, but I don't think you can be a guy that's elite or one of the greatest in the league or one of the best of all time without an elite arm. You can probably name 1 or 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks that are in the top 50 of all time that don't have a great arm, that don't have, when they played one of the 10 best arms in football, whether that was Tom Brady, whether that was Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, even Peyton, had a pretty good arm, and he would be one of the lower ones on the list. The only guy I can say didn't have a great arm, like Staubach had a great arm. Bradshaw in the 70s had a great arm. Marino had a great arm. Aikman had a great arm. You could go down the list. I mean, they all had great upper echelon. Mahomes now, all of these guys, right? They all have great arms. The only guy I could say didn't have an elite all-time arm is Joe Montana, and that's because he played in the West Coast offense, and Joe Montana was special because of his brain. He had pretty good mobility, but he was also extremely accurate. And Drew Brees even had, I would say, a pretty good arm in his prime. Not like Brady or Rodgers, but pretty dang good. So, yeah, that's a concern. I just don't understand how people can say they think he's going to be a legendary quarterback without this type of arm. I think when you watch it, you see that on the tape. It's hard to see because he's on Alabama because everybody's wide open, which is probably a thing that I'm holding back for him. But like, he has 3 receivers on his team that are going to be top 20 picks throughout the next 2 seasons. I mean, like, come on. His whole offensive line is going to be drafted in the NFL. They're all going to play in the NFL. And I'm not trying to say that he sucks, because I'm not. I like Tua's ability. I like his accuracy. I like his touch. I like his timing. I like his smarts. I think he's a smart quarterback. I just don't see him ever being an elite guy because of some of these things. And when he throws into tight windows in the NFL, which is going to be a lot more common than he did at Alabama with these all-world receivers, it's not going to look as pretty as it did in college, because you need to have that arm strength to be able to deliver the ball through a needle. You know, you need to be able to thread the needle in the NFL. And I just don't really see that with Tua. So yeah. And what I see is that fast defenders, like when he plays LSU, will be able to close on the football and cause, shorter gains or break up the ball or possibly anticipate and intercept passes more commonly. Another thing I saw was he had a lot of scheme throws. So like, what is a scheme throw? Well, like a lot of dumps to the back, like where they would break 2 tackles and run for 20 yards, and like Tua scored a touchdown. Well, I mean, I could have thrown that pass. And people will say, Brady, Breeze, even Mahomes, they complete these passes and they get touchdowns off of them. And who are you to say? You're a Patriots fan. Tom Brady always does that. I don't want to compare anybody to Tom Brady. I don't want to compare anybody to Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees. Okay, it's only the elite quarterbacks. And a lot of that is because Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Josh McDaniels are great as well. And they're great at their jobs. And that's warranted. And I also want to say that that's not to say that Tua can't be a great quarterback in the right system. Like, I just feel like on most teams, Tua won't be able to play the way he did at Alabama. I think if he does go to a team where, like, the Saints, which I don't think is going to happen, like, I think he's going to end up in Miami or the Chargers. Like, if he goes to, like, Kyle Shanahan or, like, Sean Payton, then sure, he can have wide open receivers and his strengths will be shown off, and maybe he will be an elite quarterback. But I just don't see how his traits will transfer to carrying a team in the NFL the same way some of these other quarterbacks are asked to carry teams. And that's the bottom line. So I think he's a good NFL quarterback. And I think the thing I like about Tua is that I think if you draft him, he won't be a bad quarterback. I think he'll be, at the very least, a top 25 quarterback in the NFL. At the very, very least. I think at the peak, he'll be a borderline top 10. I don't think he'll ever enter the top 10. I don't think he's a future Pro Bowler, but I think he's a guy that can win you some games, execute an offense well, get rid of the ball well, move well enough within the pocket, which I think is a good strength of his. He's really quick in the pocket, but again, I just, when I'm drafting this guy, I'm concerned about his injury history. I'm concerned about his size. I'm concerned about his lack of speed for a small guy. I'm concerned about his arm strength, and all of those things are important to me. So that's just why I have Tua at number 4. So I felt like I needed to spend a little bit more time at that one. and I'll take your comments right now to hear what you guys think. But this is one that I basically have him tied with number 3, who I'll get to real quick for a lot of different reasons. But I did want to make it very strict in terms of my rankings and not kind of chicken out and give you the actual rankings and not just say, hey, this guy's tied at number 3. So he's basically tied at number 3, but I'm sticking to it that he's number 4. So let's go to the chat and see what people are saying. Okay. So Jake Fromm equals Tim Tebow. What? Yes, Jeff George did have a great arm, but so did the top 20 greatest quarterbacks of all time. If I think Peyton Manning has a better arm, and Peyton Manning was probably the most accurate quarterback in NFL history. And if he's not, Drew Brees was. So there's 2 of the guys that you just mentioned. Kurt Warner had a pretty good arm in his prime. And Joe Montana, I kind of brought up. He was in a revolutionary offense, and he executed it very well. And he was a baller. And I don't think I really see that from Tua either, even though, like in the clutch, Joe Montana was as good as anybody ever. Would you take Tua or Hurts? Honestly, I think I said this, but I don't think I think I would pass on Tua. Like, I have him ahead of Hurts, but I think I would be more likely to take Hurts because of where he's being drafted. Not to say that if Tua was in the same position, I would not pick Tua ahead of him, because I would. I just think where they're being drafted in comparison to each other, I would way rather have Hurts and pick a top 5 player that I think is going to be excellent at a different position. I actually, overall, which I'll get to at the end because more people will hear it, I think this draft class, there's a lot of potential busts in this draft class. There are a couple players that I think have a big time potential, but I think there's a wide range of busts in this class. I think this is probably the weakest class of the last 4 years in terms of the quarterback position that I've seen personally. But that's just my opinion. Kevin Urquhart says, Tua is injury prone, but he's hella good. Am I still a Patriots fan? Yes. All right, let's get to the next quarterback. At number 3 is Jordan Love. This is Turtles guy, Jordan Love. Jordan Love is the prospect that I felt most frustrated while watching, but also most excited. Jordan Love is, I think what everyone's saying is kind of correct about him, more so than any other prospect in this draft. I feel like a lot of people have kind of nailed Jordan Love. And that is just the fact that he is very, very wild. He can be a really, really good quarterback. He has a lot of physical tools and potential. And he also is wildly inconsistent at times. But I will get into the reasons why I feel like that is probably the case. But Jordan Love is at number 3. And I think the biggest reason I have Jordan Love ahead of Tua is I just think if I was to say who is more likely to be the quarterback that ends up going to the NFL and dominating, I think it's Jordan Love over Tua. I think Tua has a way higher chance of being a solid NFL quarterback than Jordan Love does. Jordan Love could be a complete bust. But if Jordan Love hits, he will probably be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Because Jordan Love, unlike any quarterback in this draft, can do things that no other quarterback can do in this class. Like some of the throws he makes, some of the ability to escape pressure and throw off platform, throw off his back foot, escape and create magic. There is a reason that people are comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes because I don't want to do that to myself. But I do think there's a reason that is happening. And it's because Jordan Love is special in terms of his ability to throw the ball and his ability to escape and his ability to create. And all of those things now, more so than ever in the NFL, is important. So, at number 3, I have Jordan Love. Let's get into the nitty and gritty on Jordan Love. So, he's 6'4", 225. I do want to say he does not look like he's 6'4" when you watch him. I thought he was like 6'2", maybe 6'3", but he's 6'4". So cool. That's kind of like the average NFL height, I want to say. 6'3", 6'4", 225. Pretty lean guy. It kind of looks like Mahomes a little bit in terms of his body. My comparison was very hard to find. I think it's kind of like Matt Stafford. I don't want to say he's like as gifted in terms of his arm as Matt Stafford, because that's like one of the 15 best arms I've ever seen, maybe 10. But in terms of his escapability, he's better than Matt Stafford, and his mobility, he's better than Matt Stafford. So to give you kind of some numbers behind that, his 40-yard dash was 4.74, which is faster than Josh Allen, Dak, Wentz, Mahomes. So he's pretty fast, although it doesn't really show as much as like these other guys I feel like show in the NFL. Like, he doesn't look as fast as Mahomes does in the NFL. He doesn't look as fast as Dak does in the NFL when they're playing on Sundays. But maybe I just haven't seen him on the NFL on an actual good team yet, and maybe we'll see that when it comes to be. But I don't know. The 40 can sometimes be a little deceiving, and I think it is a little deceiving in the case of Jordan Love. He doesn't quite run like he's faster than these guys, but he definitely, maybe it's the agility. Maybe straight away he is faster, but I think the agility of Mahomes is greater, and that's probably what I'm thinking of. But yeah, Dak isn't too fast. Wentz isn't too fast. He's definitely faster than Wentz. I'll definitely say that. He's about as fast as Josh Allen, I would say, in terms of straight away as a runner. But again, he doesn't really run a lot. He's more of a passer. He looks to pass when he's behind the line of scrimmage. He has pretty good pocket presence. He's not super quick, like I said, but he's fast enough to escape outside the pocket and make a throw on the move. He looks very, very natural, and that's the first thing that stood out to me is he's a super natural quarterback. He just the way he throws the ball, the command before he takes the snap. I mean, he just looks like he should have been a quarterback, or like he was made to be a quarterback. It's just like this untaught thing or ability. He kind of moves like Mahomes. That's where I think the comparison comes in. Like, he kind of escapes the pocket, and even the way he holds the ball and releases the ball, kind of like Mahomes in that way. But the first thing that stood out is the release. Very, very quick, just very compact, very fluid, very easy. It's kind of like Russell Wilson, just a pure thrower. He was born to throw a ball, whether it was football, baseball, whatever. He just looks like he was born to throw that ball. It's smooth. It's effortless as a passer. He makes throws that other quarterbacks in the class cannot make. As I said, across the field, off platform, completions in awkward situations, being pressured, which I think was a big thing that I have him over Tua in regards to if he's being pressured with people around him, he can step up and make a great throw because he has a great arm, and he doesn't need to have perfect feet to be able to throw that ball, which is very special. Not a lot of quarterbacks can do that. He has very good NFL elite ball placement on some throws. On other throws, his mechanics can be a little bit wild and will cause him to throw a bad pass over top or underneath. If he was more consistent in terms of every time it was like, boom, accurate, but his just player couldn't handle it, because his players sucked around him, which I'll get to, then I would have him probably at like number 2 or number 1. But he was just a little wild in terms of his mechanics. If he gets more consistent, this is a little bit like Mahomes was in college. Like, if he's a little bit more consistent in terms of his accuracy, which is kind of like why I have him tied with Tua, because Tua's more accurate, but Jordan Love is like way more gifted as a passer. So in that regard, it's hard. And then at the same time, in relation to Tua, while Tua has an amazing offense with great talent around him and great receivers and great coaching and great offensive line, Jordan Love has nothing. I mean, he's hard to judge because his receivers absolutely suck. His entire offense was horrible. His offensive line was pretty bad, maybe the best out of his receivers and everything. His tight end was terrible. I can't express to you enough. Just watch him play. Like, his receivers dropped so many passes. There were a lot of tight window throws. Every throw seemed like it had to be on through a needle, like thread the needle type of throw into man-to-man or zone coverage, like perfect pass to be able to be completed down the field. And in the NFL, I think he'll be the case where Tua is going to have to prove that he can throw those type of passes. Like, I know Love can throw those type of passes. It's just a matter of if he can actually trust his first and second read now and be able to go through his progressions and be smarter with where he puts the ball. Because I think the con for Love is his kind of Superman-ness, or like want to do everything because he's on a bad team and he's having to do so much for his team to the point where it's just like he throws super bad passes sometimes, kind of like Jameis Winston, where like Winston has proven that this wasn't just a college thing. It's also an NFL, just Jameis Winston thing inherently. But what you'll see from Jordan Love is he'll sometimes make terrible plays because like he's like Brett Favre, where it's like, I'm going to win the game on this throw and run to the right and throw it across my body and like, oh, that was dumb. But sometimes it's like, I'm going to run to the right and I'm going to throw him across my body, but it's accurate and it's on the money and it's a touchdown. So that's what Jordan Love for me. Like, he's if he gets great coaching, if he gets a good scheme around him, he could be an amazing quarterback. But if he's in the wrong situation, he could be an absolute bust. This is going to be a guy that goes to the NFL and actually has better windows to throw to than in college. That's crazy to say, but like, watch these. I could have been a receiver on this team. I mean, that's how bad his receivers look to me a lot of the time. I also want to say a lot of people are going to say in a negative for him that he threw a lot of interceptions, and I kind of brought up part of his interceptions, but the big thing to me was his offense, his scheme I'm talking about, was terrible. Like, a lot of the times in 2018, he had a great year. I think if he had a year like 2018 and 2019, he would have been a top 10 pick. But he had to change coaching staffs. So that coaching staff left, I believe, to Texas Tech and took a better job because it's actually a pretty good coaching staff. Then in 2019, completely had to change his entire offense, had to go through it and completely change in the offseason. And that's going to obviously hurt a quarterback, especially a college guy learning basic things. And I think, given the fact that this wasn't a very good skilled, like physically skilled offense to start with, he's then having to deal with some bad plays. And a lot of his interceptions were like, a lot of them, like, go back and watch, like, the defense almost knew that play was coming type of intercept. Like, he would like snap it and throw it to the left, and it would be a snap throw, like screen, and a guy would intercept it because like they knew the play was coming. It was just a really good example of bad scheming offensively. So yeah, overall, he is probably he's the biggest enigma of this draft class. He's the biggest wild card. He could be a bust, but I think he could also develop into being a really upper echelon player. So that's why I have him at number 3. And probably why I also don't have him higher. I think he's not a day one starter. Like, Tua is a better guy. If you need a guy right now to play, draft Tua. If you're looking for a guy that might be better in year 10, draft Jordan Love. And what I've seen from him, it looks like he's willing to learn. Looks like he's hungry and he wants to be a great quarterback. So those are the things that you need for a guy that's kind of talented but raw, like Jordan Love. So number 3 is Jordan Love. Let's get to the comments, see what people think about this move and this pick. All right, so which quarterback of all time had the best arm strength? That's tough. I do think that Mahomes is in there. I think Josh Allen is in there, even though he's not the greatest quarterback. Brett Favre in his prime might have had the greatest arm ever. Like, if you go back and watch like 1995 Brett Favre, you will be like, what in the, like, who is this guy? He's just rocketing passes into people. Like, he is probably up there. But there's quite a few. There's quite a few. But I would probably say like one of those guys. Elway had a really great arm too. That's another guy that I didn't bring up. Turtle says the interceptions is not a big deal to me. He threw 11, but 3 were tipped at the line, and 5 were either went down through the hands or bounced off chests. Samuel says, just came in, like the video. Have you spoken about Jalen Hurts or Jake Fromm yet? Yes, I've talked about Jalen Hurts. I've not talked about Jake Fromm because he's not in my top 5. But I did talk extensively about Hurts, so go check that out. I ranked him at number 5. Fromm, I'll just say, I think by some people he's really overhyped because, yes, he's a smart guy and he's played in a system and he's executed the system, but I just don't think he has the physical tools to be an NFL starting quarterback. I think he could be a backup and maybe even play some games and execute an offense. I think he's kind of like a Brian Hoyer-esque type. That's just my opinion. I think some people love him, though, so maybe I'm totally wrong. I will say, though, that I didn't watch a ton of Fromm, but that's just kind of my opinion on him. But I'm higher on Jalen than a lot of other people are. Yeah, Allen has an absolute cannon of an arm. It's ridiculous. First time I watched his college tape, I couldn't even see the football. Who's the most underrated quarterback in the NFL? It's probably Stafford. But I think Wentz is kind of underrated. It's off the top of my head. Those guys kind of stand out. Kyler's kind of underrated, honestly. He'll be really good this year. Okay, so let's get to number 2. Number 2 is a guy that a lot of people don't like for the prototypical reasons why people don't like big quarterbacks with strong arms. And that is Mr. Herbert of Oregon, who's been kind of on the radar for the NFL draft for the past couple of years. But I'll explain why I like him. I don't love him as a quarterback. And I'll also explain why I think he is probably a pretty safe quarterback, but not like, I don't see him as a guy that maybe he can be an absolute stud, but I feel like he has some things to really refine to get there. So let's get to Justin Herbert. So number 2, I have Justin Herbert of Oregon. Again, I will say a lot of people don't like him. And again, this is my opinion. So I'll explain why I like him more so than others. So Justin Herbert, my comp is like a mix of Josh Allen and Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer was a really good quarterback at his prime. And I think Josh Allen is getting to be a pretty good quarterback. Hasn't quite got there yet, but I think will be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. And he's kind of a mix of both. Athletically similar to Herbert. As a passer, kind of similar to Palmer. Has a similar release and kind of the way he throws the ball. 6'6", 237. So obviously from the profile, he is a big dude. But for a big dude, he is surprisingly athletic. And we'll get into why I like that a lot. So he's big. He has long arms. He has big hands. He has long legs. And yes, people are going to say that doesn't matter. It matters to me because I want a quarterback that can stand. And I'm not tall. I'm not over 6 foot. I'm 5'11", maybe, on a good day, right? So, like, for me, big guys as NFL quarterbacks are important because they need to be able to take hits in big situations. A big reason why Tom Brady is 43 years old and he's still playing is because he's 6'5", 6'4", and he's tough and he can take a hit. And a big reason why all the quarterbacks now, Rodgers, Ben, Rodgers isn't really big, but Rodgers has been injured a lot, right? Ben, I don't know why this slipped in my mind, but like quarterbacks that have played for a long time. Let's just say that. Like even guys like Matt Ryan, guys like that, like not super big, but like big enough. And like, these guys can take hits in the pocket if they're a pocket passer. And that's important to me. Like to be able to stand under duress, which is common in the NFL, and complete a strike down the middle of the field or to the sideline while being hit, or just the ability to take consistent hit after hit after hit, because you're not going to have the best offensive line in the league like some of these college quarterbacks have. Herbert, I think, can do that, and he showed that at the college level, which is a big reason I like him. So he has a stronger arm than Burrow or Tua. I think it's a very good arm, but I don't think it's like Allen. I don't think it's like Josh Allen or like Patrick Mahomes or Matt Stafford or Aaron Rodgers. It's probably like somewhere between 8 and 15 in the NFL. If he were to be drafted today, it's probably somewhere in there, but it's not like one of the best of all time arms. Like I've definitely seen better than him. He has actually, and this is why I ranked him at number 2. You know, all those things are great, and all those things I value more so than others. And it's a big reason why I like Josh Allen over Sam Darnold, which I still like him more than Sam Darnold. I still like him more than Baker Mayfield. Those are reasons I like quarterbacks. But I also like quarterbacks who are big, can have a strong arm, but can put touch on the football and actually don't just throw the ball 100 miles an hour every single time they throw the ball. And actually, even though what people will be telling you is incorrect, in my opinion, Herbert can put touch on his passes, especially over the middle of the field, especially in the short game. Dump offs, screens. Herbert's excellent at delivering those. Maybe not like Tua, but like really, really, really good in that regard. And I think the thing he has over Tua is he can put velocity on those balls, which will be more important in the NFL. So not only can he put a little bit of velocity on his football, but he can also give the right touch in the right situation more often than not. Not all quarterbacks aren't perfect in terms of their delivery. Not even Peyton or Brady or these great all-time quarterbacks. Not going to be perfect every time. But Herbert, more often than not, put the right touch, the right timing on the right throw. And that's important to me because a lot of quarterbacks sometimes will just drill the ball, and that's where you'll see the really big busts. Like the guys with the big arms, but they just couldn't throw the ball accurately to save their lives, like Jamarcus Russell. He's strong in the pocket. I brought this up, but the one negative I would say about that is he's so big that sometimes he just doesn't care that the blitz is coming. Like he doesn't even look at it, and he'll just like rocket the ball like sometimes into a bad decision, which is rare for him because he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions or bad passes into coverage. But the thing with him is like he just doesn't see the blitz coming because he's like, I'm 6'6". That's important too. Like to be able to do that is a luxury. To be like, this is Nick Foles-esque. Like Nick Foles will be like, I'm big and like I have a big arm, so like I'm just gonna wait and I don't care if this guy's gonna kill me from the backside. I'm still gonna throw this ball. And Herbert's a little bit that way, and I do feel like as he grows as a player and matures as a quarterback, he'll get better at seeing the blitz and seeing pressure coming. And that's something that comes with experience and coaching in NFL time, in my opinion. He does a good job also to counter that point of keeping his eyes down the field with people around him in his face. Also, when he's extending the play, if he's moving to the left or the right or up in the pocket, he's really good at keeping his eyes down the field and trying to pass the ball. A lot of these quarterbacks that are athletic, the way Herbert is, will just kind of take off or they'll just make a bad mistake. And I think the thing that I really like about Herbert is that, yes, he has the big arm, and yes, he's athletically gifted. Like, he's pretty fast. I think I have his 40 here. He's a 4.68 40, which is faster than Luck, Trubisky, Josh Allen. He kind of runs like Josh Allen, honestly. That's like really good speed. That's in the top 10 easily for the NFL in terms of speed. So he has the mobility to run, but he doesn't necessarily just say, I'm athletic and I'm just going to rely on my arm or my speed to be able to make a play in the same way kind of Josh Allen does, right? Or Trubisky does a lot. Like Trubisky's like, I'm just going to run or I'm going to throw to my first read even if it's not open. That's Trubisky. I think a lot of people are comparing him to Trubisky, which I don't think really is fair because he doesn't make nearly as many mistakes. I think the thing I like about Herbert is that he'll throw the ball away. Or like if it's not a good play, he'll just like escape and throw it away. Or like throw it at the ground near the guy's feet so that it's an incompletion rather than a completion or like an interception. And those things are very small, but I think they matter when you're talking about a quarterback with this mystique of he's big, he's strong, he's dumb. Like not all big quarterbacks with strong arms are stupid. I'm just going to say that, all right? He's not Tom Brady at reading a defense, but he's also not Jamarcus Russell. Okay, there's an in-between road there. What else? So he's more accurate than people will tell you, especially on touch footballs down the field. He showed that a lot, and he has the arm to get it there, which is crucial in the NFL. He's a long strider. When he runs the ball, he'll take up. He's like a faster Joe Flacco. Like with Joe Flacco, whenever he would run, he would like get 5 yards in like one step because he would be there like. He's a long strider, so he'll get like a quick first down really quickly because his strides are super long, and that comes into having long legs, long limbs, really. When you look at his supporting cast, he had not a good supporting cast. I think people think, he's Oregon. He might have a good offense. That's not really the case. His offense was rather simplistic. He has no receivers in this draft class, like none. He has one tight end who's predicted to be a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick, maybe at the most. So like no help in terms of NFL quality players like Burrow or like Tua or like some of these other guys, even like Hurts, right? So he didn't have any of that, and he's projected to be a top 10 pick. That's pretty impressive. He had a pretty simplistic offense. A lot of it was quick throws. A lot of it was really basic spread offense stuff, like Oregon offense that I don't think transfers well to the NFL. I think in a better NFL offense, he'll be a better quarterback. And I think when it comes to starting right away, I don't think he's the ideal starter right away, but I think he could do it based off his athletic prowess alone. I think he could be like a year one Josh Allen type. Like he could make some plays athletically that put you over the top, but he's not going to win you a lot of games because he's just not there yet mentally as a quarterback. And where I would say that those are some of his negatives is like he doesn't come off his read sometimes fast enough. And I think part of that is due to the offense. Like it's first read or bust with the Oregon offense a lot of times, or it's screen or bust. People question like this sort of stuff I hate. Like when people say like, does this guy love football? Like, how do you know? You don't even know this guy. He wanted to play for the Ducks his whole life. There's a reason he stayed 4 years because he's from Oregon and he wanted to play for the Oregon Ducks, and maybe the guy actually values school. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. A lot of the people that don't even know him will say this, or like a lot of people will say he's not a prototype quarterback personality. Lamar Jackson isn't a prototype quarterback personality. What? Like, I don't get this sort of stuff, like questioning people's like behavior when they don't know the person is like really sketchy to me and just kind of screams like bias. And I hate that. Like, just look at the player. And if you hear really bad things about the player off the field, then sure, you can take that into account. But like these sort of things, I don't understand. So if we're talking stats, because I know a lot of people bring up stats, and notice I haven't brought up a single statistic in this video because I don't care about stats when it comes to college players. He had 22 interceptions in 43 games. That's not a lot. He doesn't really throw interceptions. He had no more than 8 picks in a season. That's really good. And his record as a winner improved every year. So, and I think he played 3 or 4 years. So his record went up his freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. So, I mean, in terms of all of that stuff, that checks the boxes for me. So, Herbert, he might not be your cup of tea, but to me, I think at the very least, he'll be an NFL starting quarterback for a few seasons. At the most, he'll be a top probably 8 to 5 quarterback in the NFL because he's very athletically gifted. And I do think he's starting to rise on boards because people are starting to realize that the NFL may value this guy a little bit more than some of the other draft scouts. So I have Herbert at number 2, and we'll get to my number 1 real quick, but I do need to see if people are hating on Herbert at number 2. Okay. Opium says Jordan Love is going to be the best one. I wouldn't be surprised. Jay Clark says Vic had a rocket, which I agree. Benjamin says, will the Jets be a playoff team this coming season? I'd probably say no, but I mean, if they have an amazing draft, possibly. And the AFC East is wide open. Samuel says, thank you. I'm going to be enjoying the rest of the video. Thank you, Samuel, for watching. Nicholas says, okay, the Bengals got Waynes, Reeder, Suafilo, Mackenzie Alexander, Von Bell, and Bynes. Cool. They've had a good free agency, best one in years. Besides Brady, which quarterbacks will be a good fit for the Bucs? That's a good question. I haven't even really thought about that. Probably none of them in the first round or so probably one later on. Maybe like Eason, I think would actually not be bad, honestly. What else here? So you're saying Burrow will be a Pro Bowler. We'll get to that real quick. Who said Darnold will be a Pro Bowler? A lot of people did. Probably people still saying that, which I don't know if I necessarily agree. I will look at your mock draft, busboy. Don't worry. Nicholas has Tua over Love over Herbert. What wide receiver in the league can moss players and burn corners? I'd say Julio and Odell. What receiver in the NFL is comparable to Moss? Maybe Julio. That's probably it. Tyreek Hill can't moss people. He can definitely run by them, though. How do I feel about Jamarcus Russell? Greatest quarterback in NFL history. Just kidding. He's the GOAT. Okay, let's get to number 1. I think we all know who number 1 is. At number 1, we have the Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, LSU quarterback, Mr. Joe Burrow. And I think some people don't have Joe Burrow at number 1. While I do feel like that's a mistake, I'll explain why I think he's number 1, and I think he is by far the best quarterback in this class. And honestly, I think the only quarterback I for sure trust to be a good quarterback. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, I said this earlier, but I feel like this is a very, very volatile class. And I feel like Joe Burrow is the only guy I trust that could be a good NFL quarterback in this draft class. Although I do feel like I've gone through each and every prospect here in the top 5. They all can be good, but Joe Burrow, I feel like I know is going to be good. And we'll get to why that is and why I'm so certain about it. So, Joe Burrow at number 1. So, first off, my comp. This was hard. Like, I really don't know. I've even heard people say he's Tom Brady, which, whoa, slow your roll. I've heard some people say Peyton Manning, which I think might be a little bit of a closer comp. But I think the one that's most common that I think is accurate is Tony Romo. I think that's actually pretty accurate. Tony Romo was a very good passer, not the strongest arm in the world, but very accurate and good outside the pocket, really patient, could escape and move and buy time and make just incredible plays because he was very smart, but he was also like pretty athletic and kind of underrated in that regard. he got a bad rap for his team's inability to win playoff games, and he carried kind of mediocre teams for a lot of years. So don't take that as like a bad comp, because Tony Romo is a really good player. And eventually one day I will make a video about Tony Romo. But enough of Tony Romo. He's a great CBS color guy. We're going to get into Joe Burrow. So first thing about Joe Burrow, like watching him first, I wanted to not like this guy. I'm just going to say, I came up, I wanted to look at his tape and be like, okay, this guy's so overhyped. He sucks. Like there's something wrong with him. You know, I always like, my thing is, like I said earlier with Tua and all these other guys, like not a lot of great quarterbacks of all time have mediocre arms. And I don't think Joe Burrow has a mediocre arm, but he certainly doesn't have like a great all-time arm. Nowhere close. But he has a good arm, and that's the first thing that I'll look at a number one pick. Like, you need to have that spectacular arm. Well, I think he does things that will make you say he doesn't really need that. So the first thing that I really liked about him is just his overall swagger and his feel for the position and his patience. Like, he possesses this skill where it's almost like, if you compare it to like, I guess we could say Michael Jordan right now because of the whole documentary thing going on, or like a Wayne Gretzky in hockey, or like somebody like a great goal scorer or a great scorer in basketball. Like the ability to have extreme patience and be able to set up and know what you're going to do and see it and wait. And like the great goal scorers in like hockey or like soccer, even sports like that, like they take that extra second and it's almost like the entire world slows down and they're able to create a play and make a magic happen. And that's the same for like Michael Jordan, where he would make a move, and when he's up for that jump shot, like it's almost like he's up there for 3 seconds and like he could see it going in. And like, that's what makes players special. I think that's what makes Tom Brady special, or Peyton Manning special in the way as a quarterback, where they can see it happen before it happens. But then when they're also in the play, they're patient enough to see the right play and the correct move and the correct decision, and always maximize a play, which makes a quarterback fantastic. So this is especially apparent in Joe Burrow when the play breaks down. He has great downfield patience. So he'll wait forever, like whether it's in the pocket or outside the pocket, to create a play, to wait for his player to get open. And when that happens, he has the composure, the vision to find the right player, rarely makes a mistake. Like Jordan Love, like going back to him, he's great at purely escape. Like he's better than Burrow at escaping and getting a lane to throw and throwing like awkwardly. But with Burrow, he never makes a mistake when that happens. Like I've never seen a quarterback. It's a little bit like Mahomes or Wilson, where like they rarely make mistakes when they're in a position of panic. Like, and that's something that as a quarterback, you cannot possibly account for. Like Burrow is so good at being calm and being composed. And that's the number one trait of really good quarterbacks and really good scorers in other sports, as I said. He has pretty good mobility, and surprising, honestly, when you watch him. Like he can scramble a little bit. I think it's just as good, if not better than Tua, honestly. It's not due to like blazing speed, but I think what Burrow has, like I said, with his patience and ability to see the game and see an offense and see the defense and see players opening down the field. He also can see the pocket and be able to have vision to see the hole and run through it. And that's almost more important than being super fast as a quarterback. He has fantastic pocket presence, probably the best I've ever seen from a college quarterback. Like I said, he's very calm. He stands tall. And he's very good at not taking negative plays, whether it's avoiding a sack, throwing the ball away, or like I said, when he's on the move, he never really throws interceptions. He can make accurate throws, sliding away from pressure, whether that's up in the pocket, away from the right, the left. He's really, really good in the pocket. I think that's where people say he's Tom Brady, because like Tom Brady's probably the best pocket passer in the pocket of all time. And Joe Burrow kind of reminds people in that regard to Tom Brady. But I think the thing that he doesn't have, Tom Brady, is the throw power to be able to like thread the needle of some of these throws that Brady was able to do. He gets rid of the ball very quickly because he's a smart guy. He's very football smart. I don't know how smart he is, book smarts. I don't care. But in terms of his football smarts, he's pretty smart and he's able to get the ball away quickly. Again, his biggest con to me is he just doesn't have like a special arm. It's pretty good. It's better than Tua, in my opinion, for sure. But it's not like, it probably won't be in the top 10 in the NFL at any point in his career. But I don't know if he needs it. Just like Romo, like was kind of always in that regard, like top 15-ish, but not top 10. Very nice touch on passes, pretty dang accurate, especially down the field. Impressed me. His throwing motion is kind of like Peyton Manning a little bit. Like a couple times I was like, whoa, was that Peyton? Threw it. Like some of the ways that he lofts the ball over the top to receivers on the sidelines kind of look like the way Peyton used to throw it, or maybe a little bit like Breeze as well, who's a big influence on his game. Now, some of the cons or some of the negatives I want to say about him is the biggest thing is like how much of it was him, like how much of it was Joe Burrow, because he had one of the greatest teams ever assembled in college football history. He had amazing receivers. He had, I think, 18 plus guys go to the combine. He had a great defense. He had a great offensive line. He had a great coaching staff who's gone to the NFL, like the offensive coordinator. Went to the Panthers. So how much of it was him? How much it was the coaching? How much it was the players? How much was the receivers? And I think like what Burrow will do is I think he just has those special things that I've already brought up, the special vision, the special composure, the special leadership, he has the like it factor. Like if you could ever quantify it to me, like Burrow is that quarterback that I see has the it factor. Like I think a lot of people thought Baker had that, but to me, like Burrow has it. Another con I will say is like the offense, a lot of quarterback friendly throws. Like a lot of guys were wide open, or like a lot of guys that are like swing passes, screen passes for easy yardage. But then again, like a lot of times, like they were relying on him to make the plays in these games, early in these games, was the best competition in college football. 1st and 10, we're going to throw the ball 5 wide. It's like, that's like Tom Brady right there. Like that's like Tom Brady versus the Ravens in 2014 divisional round. Like we can't run the ball, like just pass it. My running back's hurt, which was the case for, right, Joe Burrow. So to me, like he has that it factor. He has that ability to command a room, which you want for a franchise quarterback. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. I'm not sure if he's going to be like the best in the league or like one of the top 3, but I think at some points he'll be a top 5 guy, and I think at some points he'll definitely be a top 10 guy at points in his career. And I definitely see him being a superstar type of quarterback, but I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. Like that's like saying a lot. So we'll see. He has to prove it to me, but man, he has basically every trait I love from quarterbacks. So yeah, Joe Burrow I think is going to be a stud. Now, if I had to compare him to like Kyler, honestly, him and Kyler are really close. Like Kyler's a lot more physically gifted than he is, but Burrow has like this, like I think he has I don't want to say the brain, because Kyler's like a smart guy, but Burrow he has like this edge to him that I think he could drive himself to be better than Kyler. Like, so those two guys, I loved Kyler last year, if anyone followed me for the last year, but yeah, so I think, Joe Burrow's going to be a stud. He's definitely the number 1 quarterback in this class. There's no debate for me. So Joe Burrow, number one, Joe Burrow from LSU. Guys, as I wrap up, answer your last questions and comments. Make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button, and of course, subscribe to the channel. All right. Let's get to some of these comments. Robert says, I like your evaluation on Herbert. Personality sub time. Do you get out to go to what? I don't understand what you're saying, Robert. I like your evaluation. Okay, I get that. Do you get out to go too far? Yeah, I don't understand what you're saying, man. I question them. Is there a value? Yeah, I can't understand what you're saying. It's almost like you're speaking a different language. I'm sorry, Robert. I wish I knew what you were saying. But yeah, thank you. Nicholas says, Mitch, read my comment saying how the Bengals had a good free agency. I did read it. Tony Romo is close. I look like Joe Burrow? Not really. I don't think so. Mitch, besides Brady, yeah, I read that. All right. Vash says, what up? You're alive. Good to see you, Mitch and friends. What's up, Vash? Nice to see you. Romo is actually a solid comparison. Busboy says he's going to be a bust. Go to bed, Bus. Good night. Andrew Luck, he's different from Andrew Luck. He's not as big. He's not as physical. He's not as he has a different throw. Like, he's a lot different than Andrew Luck. Like, yeah, he's just different. Guitar says, haven't been here long. Does Mitch think this quarterback class is strong or not? I would say no, it's not super strong. I don't know. I would have to look at the 2015 draft class. Yes, he has a swagger. Kyler does throw a gorgeous ball. All right, guys. I think that's it. Which state has the best players? Say Florida. Florida's good. Florida's up there. Florida probably consistently through the years might be number one. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, again, Gronk spike the like button and subscribe. Of course, leave your comments below. Let me know what you think of my top 5 and anything else you have to say about these quarterbacks in this 2020 NFL draft class. All right. It's been Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Thanks for joining me here live. Peace.